Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. We had a pretty big balance patch on Hearthstone on Friday, and yesterday I made a video about the big winners of the balance patch. And looking at statistics today, that video still holds, that's still perfectly accurate information. But today I want to take a different type of look. I want to take a look at all of the nerfed decks, the main targets of the nerfs. How are they doing now? Are they still playable? Are those cards that were nerfed now just completely useless? Let's take a look. And this video proceeds in reverse order compared to usual top decks videos, where first I start with weaker decks and then I find the strongest deck at the end. But this is actually the deck that survived the nerfs the best. So the strongest decks from the ones that survived the nerfs and then the ones that just died. But Unholy Death Knight. Unholy Death Knight has no problems after the nerfs. It did lose its pole position. It was the best Death Knight archetype, but now it looks like Frost is doing slightly better than Unholy, but Unholy still remains strong. Battlefield Necromancer, the nerf, it was not a revert. The Risen Footman remains a 1-3, it's the Necromancer itself that only has 2 health, and this actually means that the Necromancer is now weaker than it originally was. Funny how that works. It used to be the strongest card in this deck. It is not the strongest card right now. It's actually quite mediocre, but it still has a place in the deck clearly. But it's actually worse than it was when the Necromancer was a 2-3 and the Risen Footman was a 1-2. And then there's the matter of Blightfang. And Blightfang right now looks like the weakest card in the Unholy Death Knight list that still run it. But then there are also Unholy Death Knight lists like this one, which doesn't even include Blightfang anymore. Sure, Blightfang may still have places, I mean, it depends on the meta. If there's a meta where you can swing back the board and get a lot of 2-2s, then maybe you still want Blightfang in your Unholy Death Knight, but right now it looks like you're better off cutting Blightfang and proceeding with a deck such as this featured list. Then the nerf deck that survived the second best, also super strong deck still, Undead Priest. Undead Priest, it's 28 cards complete, basically still. High Cultist Basilisk, okay, it was nerfed, it now costs 5 mana instead of 4. It was actually a revert, it used to cost 5 mana, it was played when it cost 5, it was even better when it cost 4, now it costs 5 again, and it's still played. Hey, it's still a perfectly fine card for the deck, still a strong card in the archetype. The deck list doesn't need any changes because of this nerf. It's 28 cards complete basically, so in this one the last 2 spots are filled with those 2 bone flingers. Sometimes there's amalgams and there's a few alternatives that you can put in those final 2 slots, but currently the bone flinger list looks like the best one in this meta, and also really strong deck still. Coming in third is Big Demon Hunter. Big Demon Hunter got a nerf with Fellscale Evoker, which now has 3-7 stats instead of 5-7. Bit of a preemptive nerf, because Big Demon Hunter was one of the stronger decks and it looked like, okay, its bad matchups are getting nerfed, so it just might go out of control. And this nerf does seem quite perfect. Big Demon Hunter is still very strong, and it just didn't become better. So, okay, I actually think Blizzard managed to hit their target with this one. Keeping Big Demon Hunter strong, but not allowing it to become too strong. Actually, the strongest card in the deck right now, the strongest card used to be Fellscale Evoker. Fellscale Evoker is still very strong, but the strongest card in this deck right now is Unleash Fel. And there's already a lot of talk on Twitter and social media about, hey, Unleash Fel, why wasn't this nerfed? This is too powerful. Whenever there's a strong card, there's a complaint. Be that as it may, Big Demon Hunter, perfectly viable deck, and fine deck to climb the ladder with. As we reach the 4th nerf deck, we reach the point where, okay, climbing is gonna get a little bit more difficult. However, Miracle Rogue is a pretty high skill cap deck, and you can still do some pretty crazy things with this deck. So even though Scribbling Stenographer was nerfed to 7 mana instead of 6 mana, you can still make it cost 0 if you just play enough cards. It's just a little bit more difficult right now. And Miracle Rogue can still do Miracle Rogue things. Can be a bit hit and miss. Definitely a less universal solution compared to the top 3 decks that were nerfed and are still doing really well, but you might be able to climb with this. However, the last 2 nerf decks were hit very hard, and first one of these is Tony Druid. Tony Druid right now is below 50% win rate. It's more polarized than ever. It has matchups against aggressive decks that go as bad as 2080. And 2080 is like, it's old Freeze Mage versus Control Warrior. It's just unbelievably bad. So yeah, we're seeing some signs that Druid is starting to stabilize, maybe even get a little bit better, but it looks like Big Druid would be the Druid deck that you want to play if you want to play Druid at the moment. Then you probably don't want to play with Anubrakan at all. This nerf was pretty heavy-handed, and looks like it might succeed in completely killing this archetype. Although it's super polarized, so this can still bully some very slow decks. It just loses miserably now to all the aggressive decks. So yeah, this nerf, I think this nerf actually failed in many regards, because yeah, it made Druid weaker, but the dev comment said that Druid is still intended to be playable. And is it still playable? It's a little bit here and there, and it made it far more polarized. So not many good things came out of the Anubrakan nerf, and I don't generally recommend playing this kind of Druid deck. If you want to play a slower Druid deck, play a big Druid. And finally, Blizzard actually managed to kill a card and kill a deck with the nerfs, because Spell Demon Hunter, just don't play this. Don't play this at all. This deck died. Sinful Brand is now, it just isn't good enough anymore. Okay, of course there was also the Predation nerf, so in some way every Demon Hunter deck was nerfed because all Demon Hunter decks run Predation. But Predation nerf doesn't seem like that big of a deal, so I didn't include all the Demon Hunter lists here because the other lists just don't care that Predation was nerfed, they just continue as usual. But Spell Demon Hunter with the Sinful Brand combo, this is dead, this is gone. Just don't play this, and Sinful Brand, that's a great target to disenchant to get some dust. That's just the way it goes. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.